Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're totally breaking down the reality of agentic AI in 2026. We're moving way past the hype and the endless buzzwords to see how engineering teams are actually building these systems today, right now, in the real world.
Okay, let's dive right into this massive disparity, because this data from HSO is just wild. 85% of organizations increased their AI investment last year, but only a tiny 6% slice actually saw measurable returns within 12 months. I mean, that is a staggering gap, right? And it tells us something really important. This isn't a technology problem. It's absolutely a deployment problem. So, to figure out how to bridge that massive gap, here is our agenda for today. First, the agentic AI paradigm. Second, delivering real-world ROI. Third, the 2026 framework landscape. Fourth, the cost of orchestration. And fifth, surviving the production reality. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, the agentic AI paradigm, moving beyond prompts. Now, there's this stark contrast between traditional AI and agentic AI that we really need to understand. Traditional AI is fundamentally reactive. It's kind of like a super smart tool that just sits there waiting for your prompt. You type, it answers, and then it completely stops. But agentic AI, it's proactive. It acts autonomously. It accesses databases, sets its own goals, and essentially operates way more like an autonomous project manager than a simple chatbot.
And the engine that makes this all happen is a continuous four-step loop. Observe, plan, act, and reflect. The agent observes real-time data from its environment, breaks a larger goal down into a planned sequence of steps, executes those actions, and then, and this is the crucial part, it reflects on the feedback to improve. It doesn't just react, it learns and course corrects entirely on its own.
Moving on to Section 2, delivering real-world ROI through high-volume automation. So how does this actually save companies time and money? Well, the real returns come from automating high-volume, rules-governed processes. Think about accounts payable. You can have an agent immediately answer supplier invoice queries by checking the ERP system in real time. Zero human lookup required. Or for expense management, an agent can just auto-categorize receipt photos right inside Microsoft Teams. Even in construction safety, an agent can proactively detect wind speed hazards and adjust the lift schedule before crews even start their work. That kind of proactive automation is exactly where that 6% of organizations are finding their ROI.
Okay, let's jump into Section 3, the framework landscape and 2026 orchestration.
To get these kinds of business results, developers need the right tools. Let's start with LangGraph. If you're operating in a heavily regulated industry like finance, LangGraph is pretty much your default. It's a graph-based state machine framework, and enterprises like Klarna, Uber, and JP Morgan rely on it because it provides a fully inspectable audit trail of every single state transition. It basically gives you deterministic control and built-in checkpoints where a human can easily approve an action before the agent moves forward.
On the flip side, what if you need the absolute fastest path from a whiteboard idea to a working multi-agent demo for your stakeholders? Well, that's where CrewAI is incredibly popular. It uses a role-based structure that maps perfectly to human team dynamics, like having a researcher agent hand off its work to a writer agent. You can literally get a prototype up and running in just 2 to 4 hours.
Now, for the .NET and Azure native enterprises out there, the Microsoft Agent Framework is the heavyweight in the room. It hit 1.0 general availability back in April 2026, and it unifies their older tools like AutoGen and Semantic Kernel. It brings together conversational multi-agent setups with really strict enterprise guardrails like native PII protection and task adherence checks, all deeply integrated within Azure.
But hey, maybe your system is completely centered around GPT models, and you just want minimalistic, clean delegation between your subagents. If that's the case, the OpenAI Agents SDK is the way to go. It completely strips away the heavy orchestration overhead and gives you native, sandboxed tool execution, which is an absolute game changer if your agent needs to write and run code securely. And finally, for anyone building agents that actually need to reason across video, voice, image, and text all at the same time, the Google Agent Development Kit is arguably your strongest multimodal choice. It's super optimized for Google Cloud infrastructure using an opinionated hierarchical framework where parent agents orchestrate highly specialized subagents.
You know, what's really fascinating here is that protocol openness now matters almost as much as the framework itself. We have the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, which standardizes exactly how agents connect to external tools and databases. Then there's the Agent-to-Agent Protocol, or A2A, which defines how completely independent agents discover each other and delegate tasks. This is a massive hedge against vendor lock-in. If you build your tools on MCP, you can literally swap out your orchestration framework later without having to rewrite a single integration.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, the cost of orchestration and the hidden factors behind it.
Okay, I want you to think about this shocking number for a second. 30. Just keep the number 30 in your head.
Because the framework you wrap around a model in 2026 can change agent performance by up to 30 percentage points on identical models performing the exact same tasks. 30 points. This perfectly illustrates that your framework choice is definitely not just a minor implementation detail. It literally dictates whether your agent succeeds or fails, completely regardless of how smart your underlying large language model actually is. Because here is the kicker. Ease of use can come with a massive hidden price tag. Faster setup times with simpler frameworks like CrewAI can secretly triple your token overhead on simple, single-tool call workflows compared to LangGraph. And since LLM API calls typically make up 40 to 60% of your total operating expenses, picking the wrong framework quietly multiplies your absolute largest operating cost. No way around it.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Production Reality and Actually Surviving Deployment.
We've got to talk about this statistic from MIT. They analyzed over 300 enterprise implementations and found that only about 5% of enterprise agentic AI projects successfully make it from the pilot phase into real-world production. 5%. That means 95% of these projects are either failing to launch entirely or dying shortly after.
So how do we beat those terrible odds? Well, both academia and the industry have rallied around the CLEAR framework. Proving that success requires immense, rigorous discipline in tracking 5 key things: cost, latency, efficacy, assurance, and reliability. You have to actively measure your API costs, the speed of your execution, single-run accuracy, human-in-the-loop safety guards, and pass-at-K metrics across multiple reruns. Because an agent that works perfectly once in a demo is completely useless if it fails on the 8th try in production.
And honestly, to track all of that effectively, deep observability is absolutely mandatory. You simply cannot ship an agent without it. Tools like LangSmith aren't optional anymore. Tracking distributed traces across every single sub-agent handoff, every tool call, and every retry loop, that belongs in your very first code commit, not your 30th. If you don't know exactly why your agent just went rogue and spent $10 in API calls looping on a single error, you are not ready for production.
So I really want to leave you with this one final thought. Agentic AI in 2026 is a rigorous engineering discipline. It's not a magic demo anymore. The gap between a cool prototype and a reliable enterprise tool is measured entirely by the discipline you apply to the architecture. So, is your organization actually ready to build for reliability, or are you just building for the hype? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.